But with China attacking countries sort of under the radar in this grey zone, like with cyber warfare, would it ever cross a line where we finally decided enough was enough and we must fight back? How would a war in our region actually start? I was joined earlier by Michael Shoebridge, who's worked in our national security agencies, is now Director of Defence Strategy and National Security at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. Michael Shoebridge, thank you for your time. Can you tell me first, how likely is this war that we're told is coming, possibly, given that Taiwan has got 5 times more military than we do and has got far more advanced weaponry than we do, and if China did invade, even taking the world reaction out of the equation, it's going to be very bloody?
Well, Andrew, it's something that the Chinese government has been designing and building the People's Liberation Army to do. So if you wanted to know what's the first priority that Xi Jinping has for his military, it's to have a military capability to take Taiwan by force. So I think that's the first thing to bear in mind. Second thing is that he's said publicly that solving Taiwan and unifying it with the mainland is not a problem that can be passed on to the next generation. It's a problem that the current generation, i.e. during his term of leadership, must solve. So it's absolutely credible that China could do this, but there are things we can do to deter them.
Well, the deterrence, I would imagine, is a united front, but at what stage do we actually get involved? Does America, does Australia actually send any military help? Because let me wargame this with you. I mean, China right now is sending planes regularly into Taiwanese airspace, whether to freak them out, test the defences, whatever. It's also launching cyber attacks on Australia as well, of course. We don't go to war over that kind of provocation, so then China will step it up. Say it cripples Taiwan with massive cyber attacks, knocks out its electricity, its trains. Is there a war then?
I think that the key question there is what would break the Taiwanese people's resilience? And my assessment is that would do the opposite. It would have the same effect that the Chinese economic coercion towards Australia has had. It will stiffen their resolve. I think Australia is not going to have a primary part in any conflict around and over Taiwan itself. If the conflict escalates beyond that, because in history wars have escalated despite everyone saying they have limited goals, then Australia would be a part of that broader conflict. But I think before then it really is about deterrence. That's political engagement with Taiwan, not just by Australia, but a lot of countries. And it's also supplying them with the kind of technologies and capabilities that make Xi doubt whether his military can do the job.
Yeah, but I just wonder, again, at what stage does the fighting start and potentially involve us? So we wouldn't go to war, and America, I doubt, would go to war because Taiwan had been crippled with a cyber attack. Say then there's a fomenting of a revolution in Taiwan, a so-called revolution by Chinese sympathisers, which no doubt it's got throughout the country. They then call for help from China. Is that how a war breaks out then? Or do we even get involved in those circumstances?
It could be, but I think if you look at world history, the way wars start is by unexpected escalation. So, think about a US naval task force going up through the Taiwanese Straits and a PLA aircraft getting a rush of blood to the head and deciding to turn its active radar on. That is the step before you launch a missile, and then a miscalculation between the two. This is the way escalation happens.
Now, if there is a war, and we're told by an American admiral, could be in 5 years, we're told by the former SS boss that it is likely, how prepared is our army? As I said, Taiwan, which has got a population just under our own, has got 5 times as many military as we do, it doesn't strike me that Australia's prepared for that much.
No, but I think you're right to say Australia is not going to be at the tip of the spear. It really is a matter of working extremely closely with our US ally that will be at the tip of the spear. And it'll be that classic thing about what are the particular things that the ADF has that are valuable in that. So it's not, I don't think the army is really in that scenario.
Now, Michael, several years ago, before China suddenly became this menacing, we foolishly signed a 99-year lease deal with a Chinese company that's got links, of course, to the communist regime, to run the Darwin port. Now, it looks a very stupid decision now. I know that President Barack Obama at the time wasn't happy. It looks even worse now. The Prime Minister has got the Defence Forces looking into reviewing the lease to see whether we should take it off this Chinese company, maybe compensate it. Here he is today.
This is a matter for our security and defence agencies to advise if there's been any change in the security status of those port arrangements. I should stress it's not the entire port area of Darwin. I think sometimes I was up in Darwin just last week, and it is one section. It's not where our military and defence facilities are. That's in another area.
Michael Shoebridge, what should Australia do with this lease?
Well, Andrew, we have to end it. Having a Chinese-owned port operator in the middle of Darwin Port operating the biggest single operating chunk of Darwin Harbour is a strategic own goal. Darwin is becoming increasingly important for the Australian military and our Navy, but also our US ally and other partners like Japan. Building that Darwin naval facility to enable much bigger operation of Australia and our allies and partners is a critical strategic thing to do. And it's an absolute own goal to have that piece of our strategic geography in the control of our potential adversary.
Well, you've got to ask yourself whether China would ever let America or Australia run one of its ports that's also partly used as a military facility or has the potential to be used as such. I think the answer would be a resounding no. It makes you realise how brainless we were to agree to this. Michael Shoebridge, thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thanks very much, Andrew.